Hey everybody, Dr. Justin Dunaway here with the Institute of Clinical Excellence, lead faculty for our total spine thrust manipulation and our persistent pain comprehensive management seminars. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about a really cool study that was co-sponsored by the APTA that just came out, and kind of how that rolls into what we should be thinking about and doing in practice when we look at patients with acute onset spine pain. So the study I'm talking about is the observational retrospective study of the Association of Initial Healthcare Providers for New Onset Low Back Pain with Early and Long-Term Opioid Use. It's a really cool retrospective study that went back in and looked at 216,000 patients with new onset low back pain who were opioid naive that went into the healthcare system. And they basically tracked where in the system they entered, whether they were a physician's office or what they considered conservative management, which was either PT, chiropractor, or acupuncture, or other non-conservative stuff. So 216,000 patients with new onset low back pain who were opioid naive, not taking any opioids. And then what they did is they looked at them to see how many patients were using opioids within 30 days of entering the healthcare system, and how many patients were using opioids within 60 days of entering the healthcare system for their new onset acute back pain. And then they went back and looked at opioid use based on where you entered the system. Really cool stuff. The first thing we see, and again, this N is huge, 216,000. The first thing we see right off the bat is pretty interesting. Of the 216,000 people that had acute new onset low back pain that were not currently taking opioids, 22% of them are now taking opioids, which is a terrifying number right off the bat. Now, where it gets really interesting is if you saw conservative management first, which was either a physical therapist, a chiropractor, or an acupuncturist, but not all three, your odds of using opioids in the first 30 days was decreased by between 85 and 91%. Ladies and gentlemen, that is huge. It is huge evidence of the power of physical therapy. It's huge evidence of the power of chiropractors, and it's the huge evidence of the power of acupuncturists. No matter what we believe in the evidence, you can't refute this. Patients walk in the door, they enter there, and they're using the medication that's killing 70,000 Americans a year significantly less. That's important. When we trace it out to 60 days, the people who entered into the conservative management before going to their physicians, 73 to 78% of them are not, or they have 73 to 78% reduced risk of using opioids. Again, this is incredibly powerful stuff. So then from a patient perspective, who do you see? Or from a physician perspective, who do we refer to? Or when I hurt my back, where do we go? Does it even matter? These numbers are pretty powerful for each of the three professions. So kind of the way I think about it is this. What you need is if you have back pain, if you have neck pain, really if you have any orthopedic condition, when you enter the healthcare system, you need a provider that can finish the drill. Now, I'm not a physical therapist that dislikes chiropractors. I'm a physical therapist that dislikes incomplete care. And when we look at what happens in PT's offices, and when we look at what happens in chiropractors' offices, there's plenty of incomplete care happening in both teams. And there are plenty of spectacular chiropractors and spectacular physical therapists crushing outcomes and doing some really cool evidence-based guideline-adherent care. And everything in between. When we look at scope of practice between physical therapists and chiropractors, when we kind of zoom in on conservative management of spine pain, let's be honest, there really isn't a whole lot of difference between what can happen in the physical therapist's office and what can happen in the chiropractor's office. Right? So when we look at what we should be going after from a treatment perspective, we should look at the guidelines. We should look at evidence-based guidelines that are produced in multiple professions across the globe. And there's a couple really nice review articles that review these clinical practice guidelines. One of them was done by Wong in 2016 that looked at all the evidence-based guidelines for the treatment of low back pain. And what they found is pretty much this. When we compare all these guidelines, there's a handful of things that always fall out. Patients that enter the system with back pain up front as a frontline treatment should be getting evidence-based education, should be getting thrust manipulation, and should be getting exercise. When we look at clinical practice guidelines for neck pain, what do we see? Parikh did a really nice systematic review of neck pain guidelines, and this came out in 2019, and they showed us the same stuff. Patients that enter the system with neck pain, almost all guidelines agree that they should be getting some form of evidence-based education, they should be getting manipulation, and they should be getting exercises. Now, when we ask people what professions do what, when we ask physicians what professions do what do we hear? Well, chiros manipulate, physical therapists do the exercisey stuff, and acupuncturists do the stuff with needles, right? So when we look at the populace, when we talk to physicians, when we talk to the people that are making the decisions on where they're going to go or where they're going to send patients, our professions, each of the conservative management professions, seem to be defined by a singular intervention instead of our total scope of practice. Right? So when we're looking for clinicians, when we're looking to where we send people for back pain, or when we're looking where we should go with back pain, we need somebody that can complete the drill. When we look at the guidelines, what is the drill? The drill is education. Thrust manipulation should be part of the package where appropriate, and exercise. When we talk about education, what does the education look like? Well, evidence-based education is not the traditional back school stuff. It's not the jelly donut when you flex forward, squirting out the back. It's none of that stuff. It's very simple. It's, listen, John, almost everybody on the planet will experience back pain at some point in their life. I know that it's bad. I know that this feels terrible right now. Most likely it's going to get better. Something like 70% of all back pain resolves completely on its own. What I want you to do is avoid bed rest. The worst thing you can do for your back pain is stop moving. Here's some simple stuff to do. We're going to back down from where your current levels are. Here's some stuff to work on. Every day should get a little bit better. If the next week or so you're not feeling like you're improving, give me a call and we'll dive deeper. Right? That's it. And then we should also sprinkle education throughout the treatment if we actually need to proceed down conservative management, right? And the education that we bring in should be teaching patients about the resilience of their body, should be decreasing fear, should be teaching them how to appropriately load and build capacity so that down the road, they don't need to come back in and see us for every tweak, every flare-up of back pain. So that's education. Thrust manipulation should be on board somewhere early and when it's appropriate. And ladies and gentlemen, I know chiropractors, if you're listening, I'm preaching to the choir, but physical therapists, thrust manipulation in the acute back pain patient is appropriate far more than we think it is. We need to be comfortable in this space, and we need to be willing to provide this treatment early on. And the last thing is exercise, right? Finishing the drill with exercise. And when we look at the evidence behind exercise, there's our evidence is really mixed on just about everything, but it's pretty straightforward when it comes to exercise for back pain. General exercise is as good as specific exercise. And that should be really freeing for us, because one thing we hear all the time is that patients don't adhere to our programs. Well, if they don't like the stuff we're doing, they're not going to adhere to it. But when we know that general exercise is as good as specific exercise, it really opens up this powerful window where we can identify things that patients enjoy, identify things that patients are interested in, and find ways to use those tasks to appropriately challenge the patient to provide adaptive change to build capacity down the road. Right? So education, thrust manipulation, and exercise need to be part of the package for just about every back pain patient through the door. Not everybody, and not everybody needs different levels of those things, but to be a complete provider of back pain, we have to be comfortable and confident in those three zones. So now let's jump back into this study for a second. Where are patients going, right? Again, I said 216,000 patients entered the system with back pain. Acute back pain. Where'd they go? Well, right off the bat, 53% of them went to their primary care physician. 23% went to chiropractors, right? And if chiropractors, again, if you're listening, fantastic job here. One, what we know is that you significantly reduce the need for opioids, and you're gobbling up a big chunk of these patients. So you as a profession are doing a fantastic job of taking a massive chunk out of the potential opioid crisis. Good work. When we look at physical therapists, what do we see? 53% going to the primary care physician, 23% going to chiropractors, 1.6% starting physical therapy. Ladies and gentlemen, physical therapists listening, this is abysmal. We need to own this space. We need to get that number up much, much higher. We know that we can have a powerful effect, 85 to 91% reduction in the need for opioids, except we haven't owned the space of spine pain. When you look at the clinical practice guidelines, we read that thrust manipulation needs to be on there. Thrust manipulation is taught in school. It is within our scope of practice, but we haven't done a good job of letting the population, letting the physicians know that this is something that we're comfortable doing early on, right? And from an acupuncturist perspective, about 0.8% are going in there. So when we get back and look at our profession, 1.6%, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get this number up. We have to be able to finish the drill. We have to be able to deliver guideline adherent care, evidence-based care when it's appropriate. So from a PT perspective, we have to get more comfortable. We have to get more loud in the space. People need to know that we are excellent providers of spine care early on. Same thing with chiropractors. They are just as good according to this study. So again, when we ask people what physical therapists do, they don't think manipulation, they think exercise. So if it's a physical therapist, we're not comfortable with manipulation. One, we need to get there. But two, in the meantime, or if that's just not going to happen, if I'm just not going to go down that road as a clinician, I've got other stuff I want to learn, I've got other stuff I want to work on, fantastic. But we still need to be able to finish the drill. So that's when it comes time to develop that interdisciplinary team, to meet clinicians in the area that have the skill set that you don't, whether it's another physical therapist, whether it's a chiropractor, whether it's an acupuncturist, whatever. If we can't finish the drill, then we're missing out on our opportunity to provide this care to the patients. So let's build that team. Let's build the bridges into the chiropractic realm, into the acupuncturist realm, and let's build a team, but make sure that we're all coming from the same foundation. We're all teaching the same stuff. We're all using the same language, and we're providing true interdisciplinary care from the same plan of care. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, one, when we take the 1,000-foot view of what's going on with conservative management of low back pain versus physician management of low back pain, from an opioid perspective, we're crushing it. 85 to 91% reduction in opioid use if you go to a physical therapist, a chiropractor, or an acupuncturist. But when we look at the numbers, ladies and gentlemen, the very few patients are coming to physical therapy. And it's because we haven't owned this space yet. So we have to be able to finish the drill. We have to be able to make sure that our patients have access to the total package of care. And I'm not saying that every patient through the door needs manipulation. Every patient through the door needs needling. Every patient through the door needs this stuff. But what I'm saying is that as a profession, we need to be able to provide all of this. As chiropractors need to be able to provide thrust manipulation. They need to be able to provide good progressive loading strategies and exercise that patients are going to do. As physical therapists, we need to be able to do those things too. There are far more patients than any of us can treat. We either need to be able to provide the package or build the team that can provide the package. All right, thank you all for listening, and get out there and finish the drill.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.